Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Ram.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All yours, Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Today who's reading? Let me see.
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram.
Who's reading today, Mati?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, it's me, Devi Shakti.
Okay, Hare Krishna Devi Mati. Thank you, Mati. Yeah, please go ahead, Mati, whenever you're ready.
Okay, all right, sure. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtuke. Hare Krishna to all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Today we'll be reading from Canto 4, Chapter 26. King Puranjana goes to the forest to hunt and his queen becomes angry. Text 1 to 3. The great sage Narada continued, My dear king, once upon a time, King Puranjana took up his great bow and equipped with golden armor and a quiver of unlimited arrows and accompanied by 11 commanders. He sat on his chariot driven by 5 swift horses and went to the forest named Panchaprastha. He took with him in that chariot 2 explosive arrows. The chariot itself was situated on 2 wheels and 1 revoking axle. On the chariot were 3 flags, 1 rein, 1 chariot driver, 1 sitting place, 2 poles to which the harness was fixed, 5 weapons, and 7 coverings. The chariot moved in 5 different styles, and 5 obstacles lay before it. All the decorations of the chariot were made of gold. Text 4. It was almost impossible for King Puranjana to give up the company of his queen, even for a moment. Nonetheless, on that day, being very much inspired by the desire to hunt, he took up his bow and arrow with great pride and went to the forest, not caring for his wife. Text 5. At that time, King Puranjana was very much influenced by demoniac propensities. Because of this, his heart became very hard and merciless, and with sharp arrows, he killed many innocent animals in the forest, taking no consideration. Text 6. If a king is too attracted to eating flesh, he may, according to the directions of the revealed scriptures, on sacrificial performances, go to the forest and kill some animals that are recommended for killing. One is not allowed to kill animals unnecessarily or without restrictions. The Vedas regulate animal killing to stop the extravagance of foolish men influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Text 7. Nard Muni continued to speak to King Prashinabharisat. My dear king, any person who works according to the directions of the Vedic scriptures does not become involved in fruitive activities. Text 8. Otherwise, a person who acts whimsically falls down due to false prestige. Thus, he becomes involved in the laws of nature, which are composed of the 3 qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. In this way, a living entity becomes devoid of its real intelligence and becomes perpetually lost in the cycle of birth and death. Thus, he goes up and down from a microbe in stool to a high position in the Brahmaloka planet. Text 9. When King Puranjana was hunting in this way, many animals within the forest lost their lives with great pain, being pierced by the sharp arrowheads. Upon seeing these devastating, ghastly activities performed by the king, all the people who were merciful by nature became very unhappy. Such merciful persons could not tolerate seeing all this killing. Text 10. In this way, King Puranjana killed many animals, including rabbits, boas, buffalo, bison, black deer, porcupines, and other game animals. After killing and killing, the king became very tired. Text 11. After this, the king was very much fatigued, hungry, and thirsty, returned to his royal palace. After returning, he took a bath and had an appropriate dinner. Then he took rest and thus became freed from all restlessness. Text 12. After this, King Puranjana decorated his body with suitable ornaments. He also smeared scented sandalwood pulp over his body and put on flower garlands. In this way, he became completely refreshed. After this, he began to search out his queen. Text 13. After taking his dinner and having his thirst and hunger satisfied, King Puranjana felt some joy within his heart. Instead of being elevated to a higher consciousness, he became captivated by Cupid and was moved by a desire to find his wife, who kept him satisfied in his household life. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Davisek Mataji. Hare Krishna. Achyuta Radhika Mataji, when you're ready, you can start, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Start with prayers. Gyantamirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmurtamina Tasmai Shri Guru Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupakadame Dadati Supadantikam Umam Vishwapadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pashyata Deshatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktarunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Let me share my screen. Okay. So this particular chapter is basically a story within a story, right? Like, I mean, this is Narad Muni is narrating the story of King Puranjana to Prachina Parhi. And so he is basically, so here we are continuing with Puranjana's story. So Puranjana is, he was very attached to his wife, but here we see that like he gave up his, or he didn't give up his attachment, but he basically ignored his wife and he went to the forest. So there are a lot of representations in this in these verses, in today's verses, what it represents and how, what it represents to us and how we can see it in the form of the story. So in the first three verses, they're combined. The first three verses are talking about how King Puranjana took up his bow and arrow and then went to the forest. And he went, he sat on the chariot and he took two arrows. So the chariot was situated on two wheels and one revolving axle. The chariot had three flags, one rein, one chariot driver, one sitting place, two poles, 5 weapons, and 7 coverings. The chariot moved in 5 different styles, and there were 5 obstacles that were before the chariot. So all of these have representations, and we'll. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is representing, so same like similar to Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's chariot, you know, Prabhupada gave the explanation on what it represents for us. So same thing here. The body is our body is the chariot. The living entity is the owner, and the owner of the body is called Dehi, like we know, Dehi nosmi yatha dehe. The living entity is driven by one chariot driver. So the chariot is made by 3 things. That is the 3 gunas: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And the driver of the chariot is the Paramatma or the super soul. And the living entity is seated on the chariot. So basically that is the position. So we are being driven by Paramatma. Somewhere else, Prabhupada also mentions that the chariot driver is our intelligence. So we are also driven by our intelligence. We should be driven by our intelligence and not by our mind and senses. And the living entity is always being influenced by the three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So these are basically represented by the three flags. So, but I'm sorry. So the three quality, yeah. So the three flags. So basically, we should be driven by the flag of our body, or the flag that should rule us should be ideally should be transcendence, but at least, if not, then at least goodness, mode of goodness. And then I have a tabular representation just to make it easier to understand these different representations. So we'll go through that. And can you all see the table here?
Yes, Mataji.
So Puranjana, or we are basically Puranjana is the owner of the chariot is the soul. The chariot is the body. Chariot driver is Paramatma or intelligence. The bow is the absorption in being the doer and the enjoyer. The 5 horses are the 5 sense organs: eyes, ear, nose, skin, and tongue. The golden armor and the chariot decorations are the Rajaguna, because Puranjana was acting in Rajaguna, so that's why it's represented. So the decorations are represented. So just like the flag. So what flag we are representing is what it's mentioned here. The quiver of unlimited arrows is infinite material desires. 2 explosive arrows are ego and possessiveness. 5 arrows are activities of the Gyanendriyas. 5 horses that are moving quickly are 5 Gyanendriyas, which are easily attracted by the senses. 2 wheels are sinful and pious activities. The revolving axle is the pradhana. The 3 flags are 3 modes of nature. The 5 supports are 5 life airs: prana, apana, udana, samana, and vyana. The rein is the mind. The driver is the intelligence. The sitting place is the heart. The 2 poles which harness to which harness is fixed is lamentation and illusion. The 7 coverings are 7 dhatus: skin, muscle, fat, blood, marrow, bone, and semen. The 5 different motions are the 5 activities of the karmendriyas. The 5 obstacles are the uneven roads. So prana, apana, 5 kinds of air that are within our body: prana, apana, udana, samana, and vyana. The 11 commanders are 10 senses and the mind. And the destination, where the forest where Puranjana is going is the 5 sense objects: the form, taste, touch, smell, and sound. And there are some more representations in the coming verses. We'll go through that later. So basically, that is what this particular verse is mentioning. And then Prabhupada talks about the rope. The rope in this verse indicates the mind. So how we are always, we are acting on the basis of our mind and our senses, and this basically causes bondage. The living entity is the bondage are the causes of the bondage are of 2 types, namely lamentation and illusion. in the material existence, the living entity simply hankers to get something which he can never get. Therefore, he is an illusion. So these are the as a result, being in the illusory situation, the living entity is always lamenting. So this lamentation and illusion are described as the two posts of bondage. So these are the causes of our bondage. And the living and we carry out various desires. A living entity carries out various desires through like these 5 different processes, which indicate the working of the 5 working senses. So that is what how we act. That is, we act through our 5 working senses. And same thing, the 10, the 11 commanders represent the 10 senses in the mind. So the mind is always making plans, and the 10 commanders or the senses are always acting according to the mind. So that is what Narad Muni is saying, that this is basically, he's describing to Prachina Pari about our position, and how we are and in the form of the story. So in the next verse, in verse 4 also has some representations. I'll just read the translation real quick. It was almost impossible for King Puranjana to give up the company of his queen even for a moment. Nonetheless, on that day, being very much inspired by the desire to hunt, he took up his bow and arrow with great pride and went to the forest, not caring for his wife. So there are some representations here as well. This desire to hunt is also again represented by women hunting. So that is what is a desire. So although he had a wife at home, he desired to. So basically, that is the representation. So even if a person has has a wife, sometimes there are Prabhupada says that one form of hunting is also called as women hunting, and sometimes the conditioned soul is not satisfied with one wife, and they desire to have their senses are very uncontrolled, and they desire multiple to have to enjoy with multiple women. So King Puranjana's abandoning the company of his religiously married wife is representative of the conditioned soul's attempt to hunt for many women for sense gratification. So Prabhupada says that wherever a king goes, he's supposed to be accompanied by his wife. But when the king or the conditioned soul becomes greatly overpowered by desire for sense gratification, he does not care for religious principles. So when we have pride, so that is what it mentions here, that with great pride he accepts the bow and arrow of attachment and hatred. So because of pride, we have our attachments and hatred, and our consciousness is so basically, like, it's there's only 2 paths, right? The right way and the wrong way. And if one becomes very proud in our position, we are influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance, and then we give up the right path. So that is what is represented here. So giving up the wife is giving up religious principles for sense gratification, and the bow and arrow represent attachment and hatred. So because of pride, we give up our religious principles, and we act in sense gratification, and that's how we are attached. And then in the next verse 5, King Puranjana was very much influenced by demoniac propensities, and because of this, his heart became very hard and merciless, and he started killing many innocent animals in the forest. So these sorry, there's something in the chat. Yes, Mataji, I'll share the chat. So this because of his desire to hunt, this king Puranjana, he was this is basically demoniac propensity. The desire to hunt is demoniac propensity. That's what Prabhupada says. So Prabhupada says that when a man becomes too proud of his material position, he tries to enjoy his senses in a very unrestricted way and being influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. So this he's described as asuric or demoniac. When people are demoniac in spirit, they are not merciful towards poor animals. Consequently, they maintain various animal slaughterhouses. So hunting is very hunting is a demoniac propensity, and his heart, Puranjana's heart, became very hard and merciless, and without consideration he killed like many wild animals with his arrows. So this verse 5, 6 and 7, they all talk about animal killing, and how this animal killing is very, very it basically kills our propensity of for mercy. There are these 4 pillars of religion, and one of the pillar is the pillar of mercy, and the more a living entity kills or eats meat, or engages in this propensity, then the quality of mercy is killed. So Prabhupada says that this mass fighting and wars between nations, that basically that it is because of this unrestricted killing of many animals, because they lose because we lose our quality of mercy, and that's why we mercilessly not just kill animals, but then it expands to killing other fellow human beings as well. So that is what Prabhupada says, very, very demoniac, and they should not be done. It's very sinful to kill. In the next verse, the reason for the Puranjana's reason for killing is mentioned here. So if the king is too attracted to eating flesh, he may, according to directions of revealed scriptures, on sacrificial performances, go to the forest and kill the animals that are recommended for killing. So one is not allowed to kill animals unnecessarily and without restrictions, and also it's not even allowed to kill all the animals. It is only certain animals, according to scriptural principles, are allowed to be killed, and that too only for certain performances, certain religious performances, like Shraddha or something like that, some sacrificial performances. So so only in those areas, it is only in those certain situations it is allowed. But this mass killing and just for pleasure, or just because this Puranjana was proud and he just wanted to hunt, went and killed a lot of animals. It's Prabhupada says that just like there are traffic regulations on the street, so people, we follow our traffic rules. We drive on the left, and or right, depending on which country we are in. So same thing. These traffic rules, they are meant for humans, and they are meant for regulations. So so animals are not restricted. There are no restrictions for animals. So if an animal violates, he's not punished, but a human being, he is punished. That is what Prabhupada says here. So similarly, the Vedas are not meant for animals, but for our understanding, like it is for us, it is for human beings. And then Prabhupada says that human beings now in the stage of Kali, we have become so degraded that on one hand we restrict polygamy, and on the other hand they hunt women in so many different ways. So, if polygamy means that like there is also responsibility of different of the multiple wives that the man marries. But in this kind of situation, there is no responsibility, and there is just this mentality of enjoying the women. And then in text 7, Narad Muni is continuing the story. So Narad Muni is saying that any person who works according to the directions of the Vedic scriptures does not become involved in fruitive activities. So, just as the government has licenses for its citizens to act in a certain way, the Vedas also has injunctions to restrain and regulate our activities. And there are a lot of references in this word, in this verse. So, I'm sorry, in the next verse actually. So Narad Muni is saying that any learned person who works according to the religious principles or the Vedic scriptures, we are not, then we don't get entangled in the reactions. So there are things that are allowed in the scriptures in our Vedas, but if they are done perfectly, then there is no entanglement. So even animal killing is allowed in certain occasions, and there is a process to follow that. In text 8, there are a lot of references here, so we'll just go through them one by one again. There's table format representation. A person who acts whimsically falls down due to false prestige. Thus, he becomes involved in the laws of nature, which are composed of the 3 qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. In this way, a living entity becomes devoid of his real intelligence and becomes perpetually lost in the cycle of birth and death. Thus, he goes up and down from a microbe in stool to a high position in Brahmaloka planet. So this is the reaction of if we don't act according to scriptures. So if we act whimsically, that's what is mentioned here, that if a person acts whimsically, they fall down due to the false prestige. And it says, in the verse, it says, Manarudo nibhadyate. So one who is influenced by pride and bound by these actions. And we fall down by the influence of the gunas, and we lose our intelligence, and then we go down in the cycle. We go down in the cycle of birth and death, and we again are we continue in this cycle of birth and death. This is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. He who disregards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. So that is what is mentioned here. Then there is again Prahlad Maharaj also mentions in the 7th verse, in the 7th canto, that materialistic person who are too much engaged in material enjoyment and do not know anything beyond their material experience are carried by the whims of material nature. They live a life characterized by chewing the chewed, and they are controlled by the uncontrolled senses. And thus they go down to the darkest region of hellish life. So that is what is up until verse 8. And then verse 9 talks about the animals that lost their lives, and their plight, and how devotees are very pained to see this kind of situation. So even the people in Puranjana's kingdom, they were very devastated to see this. To see this this animal killing by the king, and the animals were also pained. So many animals within the forest, they lost their lives and they were pained. They were pierced by the sharp arrowheads. And merciful persons cannot tolerate seeing all this. So Prabhupada says in the purport that it's not so people are people who have some mercy sentiment left. They are also they are pained by this. The devotees are pained to see this plight of the animals, but even God or even Krishna is pained by seeing this this plight of the animals, and that's why he came as Lord Buddha. He appeared as Lord Buddha, and he stopped. That's why he stopped all the because brahmanas at the time were performing sacrifices, and in the name of religion, and actually they were doing it for gratifying their own senses and to eat them. So Lord Buddha, he came and he stopped all these animal sacrifices, and so because even Krishna is pained to see that. And then in verse 10, it's mentioned which different types of animals that the king killed, and after killing, the king became very tired. So this basically Prabhupada mentions this, gives this analogy of what does this mean. So basically this becoming tired is when people perform during the week, they perform their activities and then they become very tired, and then over the weekend they don't really want to do anything else. So that's what it means here, that being tired is actually good, because in one sense that people will restrict themselves over the weekend from sense enjoyment, and they will just not act in sense gratification mode, and hopefully be come to the level of to the mode of goodness. And then text 11. So what did King Puranjana do is, after he was tired, the king was fatigued and hungry and thirsty, and then he returned to the palace. And after returning, he took a bath and had an appropriate dinner. Then he took rest and thus became freed from all restlessness. So King Puranjana, after coming home, he took bath, and then he had an appropriate dinner. That's what. So basically, being hungry and thirsty, he was. So this basically represents that. He was troubled on remembering. So basically, 1 second here. I'm trying to take a look at my notes. Yeah, so he returned home being hungry and thirsty. So basically, returning home is, giving up the sinful activities and establish oneself in dharma. Taking a bath, taking a bath represents, that means purifying oneself. So how do we purify ourselves? Is by calling brahmanas, and by listening to the brahmanas and performing some kind of an atonement. So because we've performed a lot of past sinful activities, the taking of bath is represented by this process of atonement. And then it's mentioned here that he ate appropriate dinner. So this appropriate dinner is basically sattvic. It can also mean sattvic food, but it means basically giving up meat and liquor. And then he took some rest. And then taking rest means it means that becoming steady. So not being agitated and in mind, and not doing whimsical things, but just being steady and acting according to scriptures, and being freed from and becoming freed from restlessness. So that is what it represents. So we should basically coming back to the mode of goodness and giving up the activities of passion and ignorance is what is mentioned, is what is represents here. Verse 12 is mentions that King Puranjana, how after his bath and everything, he decorated his body with suitable ornaments. He smeared sandalwood pulp over the body, put on flower garlands. In this way, he became completely refreshed. And after this, he began to search out for his queen. So again, there are representations of this as well, like what it means. So he decorated himself with ornaments, sandalwood pulp, and garlands. And these decorations are compared to the knowledge of religion and the self. So we should always decorate our senses with by listening to the scriptures, by listening from sadhus. So Prabhupada says here also in the purport that we should associate with sadhus, shastras, and guru. So this is the process. And then what did he do after he decorated himself is he remembered his queen. So he was looking for his queen. So that means we should remember with our intelligence, we should remember and fix ourselves. We should remember our constitutional position and fix ourselves in dharma. So basically, we should return back to Krishna consciousness. So that is what it means. And then in the last verse for today, verse 13, it says, after taking his dinner, having his thirst and hunger satisfied, King Puranjana felt some joy within his heart. Instead of being elevated to higher consciousness, he became captivated by Cupid and was moved by a desire to find his wife, who kept him satisfied in household life. So his mind was enamored with Cupid. He became very eager, but we should be eager to fix our mind in and intelligence in dharma. So that is what it represents, that we should not be enamored by Cupid, and we should be fixing our mind in dharma. So basically, so it says here that King Puranjana, he was looking for his wife, but he could not find his wife. So the not finding his wife is, so sometimes it happens that, we may follow dharma, but, our desires because of our past sinful activities, our desires will still remain. But we should not be discouraged, because these even if we follow dharma, the reactions will not the past the desires will not go immediately. So we will not. The Puranjana did not find his wife. He was looking for his wife, but he could not find his wife. But so basically, we should not be disheartened that our desires are still there, and we should not go back to acting on the desires, but we should be steady and with the steady mind, we should continue to following the regulative principles and fixing our minds, trying to fix our minds in the devotional process and Krishna consciousness. So that is what I had for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I apologize for any mistakes and any discrepancies. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the wonderful class, Madhuri. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.